What is going on, everyone? Hope you're having a great day. Welcome, boys and girls, to the Bass Kayak and Beers podcast. I'm a little bit off my game. Let me start off with that because I am right now in Austin. I'm staying at my sister's house. I came in Austin for a week-long training. It was kind of last minute, which I feel bad because today I wanted to record, and I am recording actually Kris Morales, one of the best tournament directors, not just in Texas but nationwide. And if you're from Texas and you love fishing trails, you obviously know Kris Morales, along with Duke Trent and some other tournament directors here in Texas. They've really uh, elevated the sport of kayak bass fishing here in Texas. So I have to apologize to Kris and to you, my audience. I'm hoping the quality and the video quality and everything on this episode comes out as good as I want it to be. But right now I am at my sister's house, so I don't have my desk. I don't have my Yeti microphone. I don't have my camera. So, I'm just kind of rolling with it on my iPad, but I'm hoping this is going to be at least the quality of the video and audio is going to be good enough for the podcast. I have no doubt that the content is going to be great. Like I mentioned, I've got Kris Morales, huge fan of what he does. I unfortunately have not been able to kind of fish the trails that he has here in Texas. They're a little bit farther away from me, and this year in 2022, I wanted to focus a lot on national trails. But I'm trying to make a point to try to get as much of the South. Well, this year it's not the Southeast; it's the Texas Kayak Bass League. That's a new tournament trail that he's going to be running. Some exciting news. He's doing some things that I've never seen done in Texas, and I'm excited about it. And I won't say anything more other than Kris is going to fill us in on that one. But before we get started, thank you again, everyone, for your support, for listening to the podcast, for sending me emails, direct messages on social media, and texts, showing your support for the podcast. So I really appreciate it. It keeps me going. After all, this is just for you guys. Like, I don't really get paid anything, not a lot, I should say. So this is not for the money, or more than anything, this is for you guys to enjoy the sport and help grow the sport as much as we can. It's a great community. The kayak bass fishing community is an amazing community, and I love all the interactions, all the experience on and off the water. So without further ado, we're going to bring in Kris Morales. Before we do, quick shout out to my sponsor, Douglas Rod. Go to douglasoutdoors.com. Check out the full lineup of LRS, X Matrix, and award-winning fire fishing rods. We'll go to a quick waypoints commercial, and we'll have Kris join us. Welcome once again to the Bass Kayak and Beers podcast. Excited to have you on the show. I've never had you before, so I shouldn't say welcome again. But thank you for taking the time to come on to the podcast, man. I really appreciate it.
No, man, I appreciate you having me. I always tune into your episodes, and it's great, man. Especially you get a lot of Texas anglers on here, and I hear the shout outs and everything, so I appreciate it as well. So,
well, man, you've done an amazing job. Both with the Southeast. I know I always forget Southeast Texas Kayak Bass League, the Alphabet Crew. You also ran the. Yeah, did you also run the Central Kayak Bass Fishing Trail, or is...
No, I'm not. The only other one I was affiliated with was the TKOS that we did. Okay. I did it with Andrew Jacobson and Joseph Sanderson the first year.
Oh, yeah.
And then we did a few events this year, and it was just a struggle with trying to balance everything out. So it was easier to just scrap that and focus on growing Southeast Texas to what is now Texas Kayak Bass League. I wouldn't say it's a new trail per se. It's just Southeast Texas is expanding, and it wouldn't be fair to just call it Southeast Texas Kayak Bass League with a central division, right? So it only made sense to just remove Southeast from the name, and then that actually allows us to possibly further grow. But we'll probably dive into some stuff later on. So
awesome. So Kris, tell us first of all, how do you start it? What got you into kayak bass fishing to begin with?
So I got sent here for work. I work in the power plant industry, I got sent here, 7 years ago or so, 6, 7 years ago, and where I'm from, bass fishing is not a real big thing. I did a lot of rainbow trout fishing, a lot of striper fishing, and not necessarily from a kayak. When I moved out here, I was looking for new hobbies. I found a saltwater group in Houston, but I'm not too keen on saltwater. A lot of the guys will tell you I always give them a hard time. I enjoy eating them. I just don't like fishing for them. It's dirty. It's a mess. You got to wash everything. It eats your gear up. It's rough, but it is fun when you get out there. Uh, so so there was I'm competitive by nature. So there wasn't any. The only stuff I could find was like a bank tournament group in the area. I fished a couple of those, and then the saltwater group was a kayak group. So I ended up getting a kayak. I think my first kayak was like a Vibe Seaghost 130 or something. Mm-hmm. And I don't live too far from Sheldon, which is a small little reservoir over here, and it used to produce massive fish. Like all the monthly tournaments used to be won at that lake right there. All the online tournaments used to take like 112, 115 inches to win anything, and it all came from that lake. So I fished there when I first moved here, and the lack of any competitive stuff, even friendly stuff. So I formed a friendships at that point. And the first thing we were going to do, we were just going to have a little meetup. Maybe 15 to 20 of us. We're going to meet up at Fayette. And after putting it on Tourney X, and then we had a little Facebook group, and it grew. What felt like overnight. And originally it was just a little thing where like I was going to fish, and it was just a group of friends, and we're going to do like, $50 cash at the ramp or something. And we ended up having like 102 people sign up for this thing. And wow. And like a couple weeks out, we had like 70 people or something. So at that point I was like, man, like I got to start getting like some prizes. I need to see if I can find some sponsors. Like I got to do something, like it was supposed to just be a little hangout. And from then on, we just decided like, okay, we're just going to, we'll turn it into a little trail, I kind of followed along. At the time, it was East Texas kayak fishing, North Texas with Duke up there, and then Cats was a big one in Central Texas. And that's it, man. It just we had, I think, 5 or 6 tournaments the first year, and we probably averaged 60 something people. And then the next year, every year it goes up by 7 to 10. I think this year we hit, right around 80 angler average.
Well,
so, and it's the sport itself. You're aware, the sport is just taking off to new heights, man, and we're fortunate, to be in Texas and to have a plethora of lakes to choose from, and even over here we're not as fortunate as you guys up north, but we do have several quality options as well. So,
oh man, you guys have it better than us, I think. Like I look at the lakes that you guys pick, and I'm like, man. One of the things that most attracted me of what you did with Southeast Texas Kayak Bass League, there was not a weak link on any of those lakes. Like all of those lakes, I'm like, man, all of those lakes are like big bass trophy lakes. Like there's nothing to complain about that lineup of trails that you had.
Yeah. The hard part is timing them right. As once we get to June, July, it's rough over here. So I try to make sure that we're done by like no later than June.
Yeah.
Because it gets brutal, and a lot of the lakes over here are shallow fisheries, and it just makes it even tougher for us. So, um, but yeah, I mean, on paper, it looks great. I mean, the Sabine was probably my favorite tournament. I actually got to fish that one, and that was probably one of my favorite events from the beginning. And I put it on there because one of our buddies, Nate McIntosh, he's a big redfish guy, lives out there. He's always been harassing me to put it on there, and like I think after the fourth or fifth year, I finally caved in, put it on there, and it was fun, man. I mean, you don't know if you're catching a bass or a redfish, not big bass by any means, but I mean you're deep in the marsh. I mean it's a it's a it's a it's a whole different experience, and I look forward to getting it back on the schedule in the future for sure. So
What got you? So you started. You got into doing the tournaments, and you saw the need. First tournament, you said 60. Look, like 100 anglers showed up, something like
yeah,
that, and then
yeah,
so automatically you felt like, yeah, there's a void here that I can fill by doing
yeah,
this tournaments. 80, averaging 80. I mean, out of the national trails, I mean, you're averaging, I mean, right there almost with Hobie BOS is probably a little bit more, but I mean, you're averaging
right,
more than Bassmasters, All American Kayak Series, and even KBF, with those numbers. And
yeah,
that is amazing considering,
yeah.
considering that what you're bringing to the table is it's bigger than most national trails. What has been the biggest challenge in doing this? Because obviously people here in Texas love it. They rave about it. I have friends
Yeah.
up in Plano, Brandon Mays, and I'm like, and I
Oh yeah.
before that, I'm not to discourage him, and I apologize. My sister lives right next to the railroad, so I don't know if
Oh,
this
no
how this
worries.
is. You're gonna hear a couple of trains go back and forth here, so I apologize to my audience for that and Kris for that. But obviously, I mean, like Brandon Mays, who lives in Plano, Texas, he's telling me I'm only doing Southeast Texas Kayak Bass League,
Yeah.
and it speaks. When I ask him, it's like first Kris Morales, second the lakes that he picks, and the camaraderie, and a lot of that camaraderie is credit to you, the way you built this community. What has been the biggest challenge for you in creating the Southeast Texas Kayak Bass League?
The biggest challenge is keeping the buzz, like year to year. Um, Trying to mix it up because generally we or me tried to keep a rule in place to where I try not to go like more than 2.5 hours like outside of Houston, because I'm based outside of Houston. So um, but to without trying to recycle the same lakes,
Yeah,
right? As because you're aware some guys are just hammers on certain lakes, and it's a lot of people go into some lakes and they're like, okay, this guy's gonna win or he's gonna catch a check or whatever, and it may discourage people or whatever. So so uh, throwing in some random lakes that uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like some oddball lakes.
yeah.
Uh, Make it interesting for everyone, where everyone's got a legitimate shot. And yeah, definitely keeping the buzz going is the biggest challenge. You don't want it to go stale on you. It's I don't want to run a vanilla trail. Um, just to you know, if you ever been to one of our tournaments, or if you attend one, you'll see why it is what it is, right? I mean, it's all angler experience. I mean, that's our biggest thing. I mean, it's I can honestly say like you can skunk and still probably have like one of your funnest tournaments, just because everything going on the night before and everything going on afterwards. So
And one of the things that I really appreciate about what you've done this year, I had Jeff Isham, which he won the Angler of the Year, and we got to
yeah,
talk a little bit about um, the Sportsman of the Year award for
Yeah,
the Southeast Texas Kayak Bass League, which is named after his father, Christopher Delgado, won the inaugural
yeah,
award this year. And I've never seen anybody do that, and I think that is amazing because it kind of like highlights the importance of, you know, being a good angler, being a good
right,
person on the water
right.
and helping the sports grow. What gave
Yeah.
you that idea to come up with this? Because I don't think anybody else out there is doing that, but you managed to come up with it. How did that concept came about?
I'd probably have to give uh, like 80% of the credit to Chris Delgado for that one. Good old Texas Slim. Him and Jeff are really good buddies, and it's because of this, right? Otherwise, they probably would only see each other at the bar or something, right? But they've blossomed into a true love story of kayak fishing. I mean, they're two peas in the pod on any tournament, and he came up with the idea, and we kind of tweaked it a little bit and tried to come up with some sort of criteria for it, and of course this was our third year doing it. The first year, of course, we had to give it to Jeff to because of what he's done. He's essentially taken Kris and anyone else under his wing, and he's not afraid to teach anyone how to throw a Zoom old monster. That's
Yeah,
all he throws. If anyone's curious, so we gave it to him, and then last year was our second year. We gave it to Joe Lanzalotti, who is I'll be honest, like I'm not a religious person or anything at all, uh, but but if I'm to say I'm blessed, it's definitely because I've met this guy. Like I don't deserve to have someone like this like on my group of friends. Like he's just uh, he'll do anything for you. He's a great guy. So he definitely was. We always joke around like he would get it every year if we had to vote. Um, so this year we had a few recipients to go through, and we were me and I talked to Jeff about it because I don't know if you're aware, like I don't really have anybody involved with helping do anything other than Chris Delgado, and that's just to keep a small circle. It's less opinions make it a lot easier for me to just do what I
yeah,
want to do and and won't second guess myself.
yeah.
Um, so I spoke with Jeff and and we kind of narrowed it down to a few people, and we ended up settling for Kris because he truly runs the trail in person. Like he does so much stuff behind the scenes that nobody knows, just because whether it's work or family stuff I have going on. He's essentially the director more than I am, and he definitely deserved it this year. And like I said, the way it came about, like I said, was definitely inspired by Jeff uh, for taking Kris under his wing, essentially in the kayak fishing game. So that's how that came about and where it's at now. So
Yeah, no, and Chris Delgado is a great ambassador. Um,
yes,
just because he's just you have to meet Chris Delgado to kind of like really
yeah,
describe it because he's cocky, he's funny, but at the same time he's humble, he's
yeah,
loving, he's caring, he's I mean he's a really well balanced human being. Somebody that
yeah,
you can have fun with, but at the same time, he's always gonna have your back. He's always
yeah,
gonna have something encouraging to say. To
yeah.
me, at least my experience with him, he doesn't have a mean body on him. He always like
No,
I'll I'll mess with him and I'll troll him every once in a while. And he's never kind of like trying to, he always like, you know, turns it back on himself. He's not like,
Yeah.
And it would be fun to get always that back and forth, but he seems like he never is going to trash talk anybody. He's never,
No.
He whatever you say, about him, just, lighthearted, he's going to take it and he's going to have fun with it.
Yeah.
And I mean, like you said, it's well deserving of that award just because he's a great person. Yeah. And he really does work his butt up to help the community and kind of help out. He may not have this social media following, but at the end of the day, it's not about how many followers or how many likes.
Yeah.
It's that human interaction, and the human interactions you're gonna get with Kris Delgado is, it's far more than most interactions you get with any other human. No disrespect to anybody else, but just Kris is just great.
No. I mean, he's the best MC in kayak tournament fishing. Like it originally, we start out, if I'm at the tournament, I'll kind of run the raffle and everything, but I'll let him run the mic, because he's the mouth from the South, man. He's he can go on, and it's just one liner after one liner with him. But yeah, he's great. I love that guy. He does more than people will ever realize for the trail itself. And I said I've got him to tone down, with his political stuff on social media. I said, man, it's like a business, like I was like, people are gonna look, and it may turn people off, and I was like, man, just don't even let it get to you. So I said, aside from that, he's been doing great with it, and now, like I said, he's the best MC in the game for sure, man. If you want to bring some excitement to your very boring award ceremony, pay that $50, man. He'll get the party going.
Well worth the money. We talked a little bit about how you got into it and what made you change from Southeast to Texas Kayak Bass League. What went into picking the trails? Because I want to break down the trails for this one, because I looked at it and there's nothing to complain about that. And let's start from January 7th. I think it's the first trail. Tell us a little bit about that, because I'm really excited about that. And I got some things going on that week, but I'm hoping that I can rearrange some stuff to make it to that trail.
Yeah, I would say definitely not one to miss. This is the first one, I believe, that I'm aware of, at least being done in Texas. It's an hourly big bass, and it's held at Fayette at least this year. Depending on, I'm expecting a huge turnout like always for Fayette. It's a perfect hourly big bass lake. I mean, it's just full of trees. Any lake full of 20-inch fish. I mean, it opens up to literally everybody. All it takes is one to have a good day. And it's what we're planning on doing is it's $1,000 an hour, and it pays out the top 3 biggest bass every hour. And then and it's $1,000 split, so it'll be probably like 500, 300, 200. And then at the end of it, at the awards ceremony, our newest sponsor that we just announced a couple hours ago, No Bad Days Kayak out of Pflugerville, and they're a new store who's kind of trying to take over the Central Texas area, and we've been real picky with working with the store, just logistically and geographically. Nothing has really made sense other than this now, and they're 100% on board. They're going to be providing 2 Diablo Amigos, and wow, they're going to be raffled off to amongst the big bass winners. So the hourly winners are going to take home a Diablo Amigo, and on top of that, they're providing a good solid amount of cash for the tournament trail for each event, and then well over $1,000 in cash for AOY for us next year. So there'll probably be more kayaks given out throughout the season from them. But yeah, this one, like I said, it's the first one. If all goes well, I wouldn't mind. It's definitely going to be an annual thing to start our season off, and I wouldn't mind moving it around to, to a fork, to a
Yeah.
Fairfield Open, to all the essential Texas big bass lakes, right? I wouldn't mind making it an hourly thing or a yearly thing to start off every year. So, but for now, we're going to start off in our area on a lake that everyone's familiar with, and we know there's going to be it's going to be extremely competitive, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be tons of 20, 21-inch fish all day.
Yeah.
And like I said, if we hit a certain number, we may add one or two more kayaks as well. So I wouldn't be surprised to see this thing in the 150 to 200 angler range at all. And
now
and that's $80
go ahead, I'm
buy.
sorry.
So
now let me ask you this: is it also gonna go any? Is it just gonna be big bass hourly, or there's also gonna be the 5 biggest bass? How's that? Or just the hourly bass?
yeah, just the hourly bass, the 3 biggest bass every hour, and then ties will be broken by submission time. So it's like I said, it's a real cookie cutter lake as far as 20-inch fish. So there's going to be a lot of fish caught that are the same size. It's just going to be a matter of who gets it submitted first, right? So
and as far as the for the Angler of the Year points, is that trail going to go into the Angler of the Year points, or is that separate?
No, this is separate. We're kind of calling this like our season kickoff party.
Nice.
Friday night. If you're not familiar with Fayette, they have a really nice campground pavilion. It's super angler friendly. But I know last year in our opener, we usually use Fayette as our opening event.
Yeah.
But I think it's hard to say it's wore itself thin because we still get over 100 something anglers at it every year. But we wanted to do something a little different this year with it. But I think last year we had a couple. We had some live music and food and everything on Friday night. And like I said, it's part of the angler experience, right? That's the one thing that can't be matched with us. So
yeah, no, and Fayette is. I mean, I remember, and I'm trying to remember if it was the Southeast, the other trail that you ran 2 years ago, the Texas Kayak. What was the name of it?
Open Series, I think.
The
Texas
one with the
Open Series.
I think one of the I can't remember one, but the last couple of years,
Bass Open Series or something.
Yeah, you've had tournaments starting at Fayette, and it's always like it's one of the most exciting trails. I remember one year, and I'm trying to remember if it was Cats, Southeast, or the other trail that you ran. But I remember one of them that it went up to like there were 2 neck and neck, and they went to like 105 and 106. I'm trying to remember who it was.
That was Brandon Malley and Eric.
Yes, that was super exciting to follow. That was amazing. And ever since then, I was like, yeah, man, that Fayette is the by far, just because it's a power plant lake to start the season, it's going to start off with fireworks.
Yeah, and then and it's no surprise nobody should get mad at me for saying it, but that lake is like that year round for the most part.
Yeah.
The only thing you got to watch yourself with, if anybody who hasn't been there is planning on going there, if they're listening to this, if the wind is reading over 15 miles an hour, I would say, unless you're extremely experienced, don't even bother. We had our Toys for Tots there last year, and we have our Toys for Tots coming up actually next month as well. Excuse me. And we do it at Fayette every year too. It's kind of like a warm up event.
Yeah.
And We actually had to cancel the tournament last year, a few hours short, because the warden had to drag a few guys in just because it's a bowl.
Yeah.
So when the wind gets coming, it just whips around and it'll eat your lunch real quick. So for anyone putting that on their list to fish, mind the wind. That place is very unforgiving. And don't park at Park Prairie because the buzzers will eat your window sills.
That's the other thing that I wanted to ask you. Now, if you're expecting 150 to 200 anglers, like I looked at it, it only has like 2 boat ramps, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So it has 2 boat ramps. Now, Oak Thicket Park, which is the main one, they have a really big beach area that a lot of kayaks will go from. It's for whatever reason, it's a small lake. I think it's like 2,200 acres or something.
Yeah.
But most of it holds fish. Pretty much all of it. There's fish everywhere, deep, shallow, timber, reeds, any way you want to catch it. And for whatever reason, it fishes extremely well, even with, let's say, 150 kayaks, and then you might have another 50, 60 boats, probably more depending on weather. They'll probably get off the water. The boats get extremely annoyed when we have kayak tournaments there,
I bet.
just because they'll pull up to the parking ramp and then they'll probably drive a few miles down the road and go to Somerville or something. So, but like I said, for whatever reason, it fishes really well, even with the tons of pressure and even when there's a lot of people on it at one time. It's obviously it's hard to maintain, the 50-yard rule that people
Yeah.
try to do, but that's another thing, amongst our trail is uh, there's no bad blood or nothing. People are not afraid to communicate and say, "Hey, man, I'm going to go around you," or "Where are you
Yeah.
fishing?" or whatever. So a lot of times you may see 3 or 4 boats, which you think are on top of each other, but hey, they're cool with it. So
Yeah.
you know,
They
uh,
understand,
right,
it's not like Lake Fork or some other big lake like San Raven where you're
right.
like, come on, it's huge, but that one is different.
It's a
So
it's a problem. The boats have the bent rod pattern. They'll
yeah,
see you catching them, they'll pull right up on you, and
yeah,
but that's everywhere. So
yeah.
nothing against basketball guys. I would, by the way. So
No, but it's it is
it,
what
it,
it is.
yeah,
It is what it is. Not all of them are like that, but you get to see it a lot.
yeah.
So unfortunately,
If it's tournament boats and they know you're fishing for money, that they're usually cool about it. It's
yeah.
mostly the warriors just
And
trying to hammer
my
on them.
my experience too is the fishing guides. They're
Yeah,
trying to get their clients. They see you on fish still. They that's like, man, come on, man. Like I know you got clients, but I'm fishing a tournament. But I've
man,
seen that a lot too, especially on Lake Fork. Oh, what?
coffee guys are bad too, especially if
Oh my God, yeah,
you're fishing a brush pile. They'll pull that pontoon right up on you, man, and drop an anchor right fishing. It's a
yeah. Lake
challenge.
Fork
Yeah,
on spawning is horrible on with
yeah,
fishing guides. Crappy. Go ahead.
yeah. But yeah, like I said, it's just one of the other challenges of kayak fishing, right? So
Takes it to
it's not,
another level.
yeah, yeah, having patience, calmness, and having a plan B that's not too far away. So
So next up, you got Somerville, Texas. I'm not familiar with that lake. What is that? How do you see that one shaping out? That's February 4th.
Somerville, a lot of guys probably hate me for putting it on there, but it's one of my favorites. It's fishing different right now, obviously, because lake levels are low.
Yeah.
I think about 8 feet low. I was out there a couple weeks ago, fished it for a few hours. It's for us, it's partly clear. It's probably very muddy to some other people, but it's a big brush pile lake, There's actually some rock ledges that are really good, but it's mainly brush piles and rock ledges. There's some shallow areas that produce, but those are out of the water right now. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens across the state, really, with the water levels
Yeah.
by the time seasons roll around next year. So,
Yeah, that's true. And then
but
you got.
usually,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that lake usually produces, uh, mid 90s to win it. Um, so, so there's no telling. February should be good for it. So we'll see.
And then Austin, and that's in conjunction with Ladybird, right? So that's two lakes.
Yeah, and I gotta be I gotta be kind of coy about it because the city of Austin is tough to work with. This
Yeah,
is a road runner event
yeah.
where you can fish any lake you want, but it has to be Austin or Ladybird. All right, and I'll have to announce it.
All right.
These are uh, part of the Lower Colorado chain.
Yep.
Uh, I think what's the one right above Austin, one of the big ones. I think Buchanan feeds into Austin, and that's when downtown Austin basically kicks off. So I'm looking forward to fishing this one myself, just because I want to fish in downtown Austin, and there's some really great fish. Um, I know Rolando's posted up some really good fish from Ladybird. I think during
Yeah.
his run and stuff, and it's different. I'm not familiar with those lakes at all. They're It's a little bit of moving water, I guess, depending on what the dams are doing. But from all indications, Austin looks like there's a bunch of trees. Uh, looks like there's grass. It's that's probably our sleeper event, I would say. I mean, that one's probably going to be you're going to need to hit the century mark probably. Um, yeah, I would say that's probably our sleeper event right there.
Yeah, I noticed you packed in the shortest month of the year, but you packed in two trails that week or that
Yeah,
month, I should say. Any any thought on like one affecting the other instead of helping them out? Like maybe the attendance on Austin is not going to be as much because Somerville was prior to, or vice versa.
no, and the reason why I'm glad you noticed that is because we're doing Fayette. Normally we start our season in January,
Oh,
but
okay, yeah,
and it's hourly big bass. I tried to put 3 weeks in between Somerville and Austin, and originally I was going to do like Choke Canyon in February, uh, or Rayburn, but that puts the logistics like that would kill the numbers, right? If it's like,
yeah,
hey, you got to go to Rayburn, and then 3 weeks later you got to go all the way back up to Austin or something. Now Somerville is almost like centrally located, right? It's probably like an hour for Austin people, so it's not out of the way. It's an hour and a half for us. It's probably they're probably closer to it than we are. So really, I don't think it'll affect much. And as far as Austin Ladybird, the southeast guys travel extremely well.
yeah,
So I don't, and that's definitely been one thing to help us out a lot. For whatever reason, those guys show up to like you'll see 10 of them roll into a North Texas event randomly on a weekend, and in between two other tournaments, just because they want to go fish or something. So yeah, I don't think it'll affect it a whole lot. Um, like I said, I tried to make it logistically as easy as possible because there's a 3 week gap. I try to make it a month, but I think it'll be all right.
sorry, I was muted there because I had the train coming up, so I apologize. Um, I I wanted to ask you before we go into Houston, go down the list, and the next one is in Houston in March 25th. I remember this year you made some changes with Toledo Bend moving to the Hobie BOS. Um,
Yeah.
kind of like it made sense, which I mean, props to you for that. I know as a tournament director, you would hate to make changes at the last minute or after the trail has come out. But then again, in the interest of, the kayak anglers that would like to fish your trail, but would
Yeah.
also fish a national trail that is coming up, in Texas or near Texas, like was Toledo Bend. I know Bass hasn't released their schedule, and neither has OBBOS. Are you kind of keeping your eye out for something like what happened next? Because one of those who probably both of them are going to have a trail here in Texas.
Yeah. Yeah. I would probably bet my house on that. And I can't say anything, but
Okay.
we're set. I'll
Okay.
say it. All right. I've made my change already. I was notified, and we're good to go.
Oh
Um,
man, now I'm thinking, which one is it? Sam Rayburn. I mean, it's gonna be Sam Rayburn, or I don't know. Let me see. When is Sam Rayburn? September. Oh, I'm betting it's Sam Rayburn. I'm not gonna say anything. I'm not gonna ask you, but I'm betting that's what it is. But okay,
yeah,
no worries. You don't have to touch it.
yeah, it's with KBF. I'll just say that, so I won't get it.
So next up is Houston.
Houston
Says
County.
CO, Houston County. Yeah. So,
Yeah. Uh,
have you fished? Have you had that on the trail before? And how does that fish?
yeah. So I think the first year, we did it in June, and I think it was our biggest bag ever.
Really?
And,
Wow.
and the next year we did our classic there, and then we didn't do one this year there. And the guys are probably mad at me for it because it's a little gym, man. I think it's another 2,000 2,500 acre lake. A lot of it, half of it isn't accessible to the recreational boaters. So
Mm-hmm.
if you don't got skiers or tubers or anything flying by you, uh, it's it's a little muddy. There's a lot of docks, a lot of timber. It's There's a lot of offshore. There's a lot of shallow. It's a typical southeast East Texas style lake. And then, like I said, our first year there, Michael Iwasik, he actually moved up north. I think he fishes the North Texas trails. Fish Factor. He's got the truck all wrapped and everything.
Oh yeah, Fish Factor. Yeah.
Yeah, really great guy. But man,
Yes.
he had like 224s, a 22, like all this crazy fish, man. And actually, I think he had like a couple deductions because he couldn't get the mouth closed on him, but he still won by like 15 inches or something.
Holy crap! 15 inches.
I think he had like 107 or something, 105. But there's a man. I can't remember his name. Kirk Godso.
Okay. Yeah.
Cat Kirk. That Cats had a tournament there. I want to say in like 2016, 2017 maybe. This guy rolled up in an ascend. I think it caught like 110 inches and was off the water by like 9 o'clock. And I came back and
Wow.
checked, and he knows that lake really well. And I think he fished our event there. Actually, he didn't fare as well, but yeah, that lake has some giants in it.
Man, I gotta go down there to Houston County then. I haven't heard about that. I didn't know it was that good.
It's
Next up,
halfway
we got. Go ahead.
Dallas, Houston, so you're probably about 2.5 hours. It's actually not that bad for you. So
Oh. So we got two lakes that I always get confused: Canyon Lake and then Choke Canyon. Canyon Lake is on the April 22nd. Um, you had that. Well, you have one or both of them on the trail this year, right?
yeah, so Choke Canyon, it's kind of our staple that we do now because even with Southeast, we kind of do all of our tournaments over here, and then we'll do like one kicker somewhere else. I think the year before we did Fairfield or yeah, I think we did Fairfield, and then we've done Choke Canyon. I think the past 2 years. And it's now I'll start off with Canyon Lake. I'm not too familiar with it. A lot of guys live out that way. If you probably know Jacob Moeller.
Yeah.
Jake, I think he actually lives over on that lake or has a house over there, and it's a it's a big recreational lake, but the grass has grown back uh, like immensely, and fishing has been really really good the past couple of years. 'Cause I think there hasn't been a tournament on that lake in a few years. I think Cats might have done one 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it fished well, but I think now with the amount of grass that place has now, it's only going to be better. So that one's going to be a toss up. It's different than a lot of guys are used to. Central guys should have some sort of an advantage being familiar with it
Yeah.
and being able. They probably fished it before at some point. Uh, and then Choke Canyon is like in it's kind of like Lake Fork of it's almost like South Texas. Right? It's like South Central. Uh, it's to me it's kind of like a Lake Fork. It's monster gators,
Yeah.
tons for just trash fishing. And sticking monsters is all that is. The guys love it. There's a lot of really cool cabins and lodges to stay at. It's kind of out in no man's land, uh, but it's a blast. They got a really nice state park there as well. So if anyone's ever looking to go camping, definitely check out Chuck Canyon. Really good spot.
Yeah. And then Sam Rayburn. I mean, we all know what Sam Rayburn can do. That is, that's a Texas staple. Um, what are you most? What do you think Sam Rayburn is going to bring this year? What do you think is going to be the biggest bass, Sam Rayburn?
Uh, Man, September's a toss up. Uh, it wouldn't be my first uh, date choice, but uh, it's it depends, man. If the weather's kind of cooled off a little bit, someone always finds them. It doesn't matter anyway. Somebody's always going to find them. The amount of people there'll probably be several people will find them. Uh, Man, I mean it's I go into every tournament saying there's always a chance a share lumper is going to be caught.
Yeah.
And Rayburn you can almost expect 2 to 5 of them every tournament. So yeah, if not, definitely something 23 to 24. I mean it's almost guaranteed for that league.
Yeah, it's a great lake. I don't know, man. The way you sound, I hear you talking about it. I got a feeling that's the one that's going to be in conjunction with Hobie BOS or something. I can just smell it. Uh, I got okay.
Man.
So the what?
Yeah. It's going to be KBF, I think. So.
So the last one that I want to talk about now, I'm excited about this one, and I'm curious to know what the kayak fishing community that fishes that's going to fish the Texas KBL is saying about this, because this is a gem, hidden secret, and I don't know that a lot of people know about it. But I was shocked to see that you had it as a classic, just because you're way down over here, and I mean over here in the southeast, and Eagle Mountain Lake is way up north. I mean, not Oklahoma, but still Fort Worth. First of all, what made you decide to pick that as a classic, especially when you consider that mostly every other lake is either central or southeast? So now all these anglers that are fishing there now have to go all the way to Eagle Mountain Lake. I mean, I love it, and I know what Eagle Mountain can do. I fish it on tournaments. KBF 2 years ago, I mean, you had, man, that was a great tournament just as a spectator.
Come on.
Jody Quinn got 109
Yeah.
inches, and Guillermo Gonzalez with 17 minutes left caught catches a 24-incher to move up 110, which
Yeah.
is to me that is I was blown away. I'm like, man, this is one of those trails that you wish it was being televised because I mean it is a big bass factory, and I don't know that a lot of people know that. But tell me what went into the decision to pick that lake, and how was it received when you announced
Uh,
it?
so generally for the classic, we'll I I try to do one that no one that well maybe mostly no one isn't too familiar with.
Yeah,
Uh, and like this year we did Fork. I think man, Fork, I can't remember what we did last year. Uh, but we've done Houston County, which that was most of us are familiar with that lake. Uh, and then our first year we did Livingston. Man, I can't remember what we did last year, but I think it was something further away. Or what a horrible! I can't remember what the class was last year. But now, starting from last year, I think I may even be wrong. It might have been in my backyard. Uh, I'm pretty sure last year we went somewhere further away, and it's mainly to even the playing fields with free fishing and being able to break down the water and gaining local knowledge from it, right? So like Eagle Mountain, Brandon's probably got the most, he's set up best for that, right? Because he lives closer there and he fishes probably all of our events to where he's going to qualify and he'll be able. We have a 1 month off limits for our classic.
yeah,
So the time between September through the first week of October, he's probably one, and a lot of the guys will probably make like a weekend trip to go check it out, uh, like the last weekend of cutoff or something. And like I said, it gives everyone more of an even playing field, right? Like nobody can go pound on it week in and week out and just tear it up and figure it out better than somebody else, right? And
by the
the
way,
mm,
2 years ago was Palestine. Last year was Palestine. That was a classic.
yeah, it was a horrible. Man, I hate that after that. Yeah, we did Athens day one and then Palestine day two.
Yeah,
Yeah, Athens was great, of course, as always. Palestine was brutal, uh, but uh, but yeah. So, and the reason I went with Eagle Mountain this year, and it was tough, man. I'll be honest, I was partially held it on taking it OHIV,
mm-hmm.
uh, but I I would prefer for the buzz to like die down on it, like after what those guys have been doing there. And it has a little bit, but it's probably until the YouTube video drops or something.
Yeah,
Uh, but yeah, the Eagle Mountain thing, like I was, uh, like, man, I try to keep up with like all the events going on. Maybe like kind of behind the scenes. I'll try to follow everything and and I remember that crazy battle. I think it was like a 2 day. That was like they do like a event one day and another
yeah.
event the next. I think like Scotch had like 100 something inches next day on it, uh, and that's kind of what inspired me to pick it. I was like, man,
Yeah,
it's like I'm familiar with that lake, but clearly there's something there, right? Like,
yeah,
excuse me. And then I remember seeing a guy caught what's like a 14 or 15 out of there, like in a boat tournament
yeah.
earlier this year, and I was like, well, hey, there's an option right there, uh, and that's kind of how we went with it. I went with November. We generally would do our classic in September, but it turns out the fishing is rough in September based on our last two classics.
Yeah.
As you know, Fork, you were one who got on to me for cutting the leaderboard off.
I was like, come on, man. I wasn't leaving for they won.
I should have left it off. Horrible as the fishing was, it wouldn't have been any action.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I think Eagle Mountain is it's probably going to surprise a lot of people who aren't familiar with it. And like I said, I always revert back to that tournament you were talking about. Those guys just went back and forth, just throwing haymakers at each other all day.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a great lake. I like it. So which makes me want to fish this even more and sacrifice a little bit more of the driving because knowing that the classic is going to be there, it makes it all that more interesting for me because I live like 20 minutes away from that. Well, no, a little bit more, like 30 minutes away from that lake. But it is a nice lake. It's not a beautiful lake, but it
Guy,
is a great lake to fish, which is surprising because I generally don't like the city lakes, like the
yeah,
ones that are right in the middle of the city areas. Just I don't. I rather move, more like oh, kind of like countryside lakes, if that's the right term. Um, Now, what is you mentioned you're expecting? You average about 80. What do you think you're going to be averaging this season coming up, or what
uh,
would you expect?
I think the potential is there for to. I can realistically say that it's. I wouldn't be too shocked if we averaged 100 at every tournament this year.
Wow.
And that's because of the Central Division, right?
Hmm.
Get a schedule set up. It's three Central tournaments and three Southeast tournaments. Right. The AOI is four events. Regardless, you got to fish two South, right, to cover the main AOI. We're gonna have some small little pots for like because there may be guys who only fish the Central events, and whoever has the most points, like a divisional AOI, right? Uh, they'll win a little something, nothing crazy, but just mainly for bragging rights for the divisions.
Yeah.
It may be a Southeast guy who wins the Central, and it may be a Central guy who wins the Southeast one, just
Yeah.
based on where they finish. Right? So it's not like like you have to fish one or the other. Man, I encourage everyone to fish every event. If you're going for AOI, you essentially get one drop from each division. Is the easiest way to explain it. And with those guys, they've with cats, um, dismantling. A lot of those guys are a lot of them are big time sticks,
Yeah.
and they're looking for something more than a little weekend jackpot tournament, And I think this could be the thing to get them come back into their kayak to make a run at something, whether it's personal gain, monetary gain, or whatever it is. So, and, if with cats being able to pull what they pulled, even the last couple of years when it wasn't really what it used to be.
Mhm.
Um, I think that I wouldn't be surprised if we average over 100 throughout the season. So,
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either. And knowing, as your reputation as a tournament director and the trail gets a reputation as being, friendly, welcoming group, it's just going to keep growing and growing. As it grows, we've seen in the national trails, issues come up with rules and all that, and I'm not gonna beat that because I've been that to death on this podcast. But as far as what you like to see for your trail, do you see anything? Are you looking at what's going on in different national trails and applying anything to your trail to kind of like as it grows, avoid those kind of things to happen on your trail?
no, I mean we use the Hobie BOS rules. and kind of modified them a little bit as far as off limits. We have a week off limit, or basically Sunday afternoon, the weekend
Yeah.
before the tournament, through Thursday morning. So we have like Thursday and Friday is official practice. I looked at I've looked into maybe removing a day of the official practice, like Thursday, and just making it Friday only. I've even considered just making Friday like a graph only day. No
Mm.
fishing, graph only, uh, and that's more so. But we don't really have an issue like they do nationally with, and I wouldn't say
Yeah.
it's an issue. It's just people going there 2-3 weeks early and just hammering on them more. And I salute them. They have the luxury to do that. I wish I could do that. But locally, that's not really a big deal. The only thing I would
Yeah.
consider is maybe taking the Thursday off and just having Friday only. And uh, aside from that, I mean, one fortunately and unfortunately, we don't have like the big creeks and rivers and stuff, so
Yeah.
we don't have to worry about.
Yeah.
Especially now, nobody's going too far up a creek, so
Yeah.
uh, our rules specifically state you got to stay in your kayak at all times, and uh, you know, unfortunately, it's something we don't have to worry about a whole lot. And the anglers are really good about if they're questioning, like if they're questioning themselves, they'll contact me and say, "Hey, is this legal launch or whatever?"
Mm.
But generally, I I like to say I have a good idea of where people launch. Um, like I don't have to I don't feel like I need to designate launches. If it became a problem, I would just draw a line around a map like we did for Sabine, right? It's a river fishing place. Drew a circle around the map and said, okay, you can launch anywhere in between there. And and, and that's what I would do. I know some trails do that. I think Duke might do that
Yeah.
already. I said a lot of these lakes there may be only a handful of ramps anyways. So
Yeah.
if I get a fish submitted on Tourney X and I see this guy's 20 miles up the river over here, and like I know what kind of kayak you're in, I know what kind of motor you got, I know what kind of fisherman you are, I know your
Yeah.
physical strength and abilities. Like, there's going to be some questioning going on if I'm like, okay, like how did so and so go that far up there if you're launching uh, like Rayburn, like there's certain lakes always put like you can't launch north of uh, this bridge or this ramp or whatever. You can
Yeah.
fish them, but you can't launch past it or whatever. So fortunately, we haven't had any issues. I don't foresee any. Um, I don't think anyone needs to reinvent the wheel. Uh,
You got there cut off a little bit, Chris. I can't hear you.
oh, you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just say nobody needs to reinvent the wheel or anything.
Yeah.
I think they just need to be more clear with the rules, and I like the shortened version of rules, and that's why I adopted uh, a modified version of the Hobie BOS, right? With their approval, of course. So, because at first, man, when I first wrote the rule book, uh, like over the first couple years, like man, that thing was like 16 pages. Like every little scenario I've tried to put in there, and I was like, you know what, like this is just opening up a can of worms. And so it's like, look, you got to stay in your kayak, don't fish, don't launch past this. And I think the biggest thing that we changed over the years was no trolling, right? Because it's like we use Hobie rules, but we allow motors, right? unless if we're teamed up, like when we did the Toledo event, I follow the Hobie rules 100%. So I tell everyone it's Hobie rules for this event. So the pre-fishing, the practicing, the no motors, everything is for the. It just makes it easier to where if people are out on the water and you see somebody with a motor and you're like, hey, what the hell is this guy doing with the motor? Well, he may not be fishing the Hobie BOS event. And then everyone's calling AJ saying, hey, this guy's got a motor. And then he's confused. And it just makes you say, hey, no motors, right, for that particular event. But like I said, man, I think we've got something good going on. I'm not looking to make any crazy changes or anything. I mean, we'll probably keep it as is. It's worked this far.
Yeah.
You know, the old, if it ain't broke, don't fix it type thing. So,
Yeah, definitely. So Kris, I've had you for an hour, so I really appreciate you taking the time, man. I know it's getting kind of late, but I wanted to give you a few minutes to, give shout outs to, I know you had a lot of companies. You mentioned the new kayak shop. So go ahead and if you can repeat that shop names and any other
yeah,
persons or, companies that have helped you with your trail.
yeah, for sure. First and foremost, man, I got to thank all the anglers for showing up and making it what it is. I think they would still show up regardless of any sponsors or anything. Uh, so definitely my hats off to them for making this what it is. And sponsor wise, like I said, No Bad Days Kayak out of Pflugerville. We just announced them. Like I said, they're are basically our title sponsor this year. And we've also just added a Cross Kicks footwear. They're going to be providing some cash as well as 24 pairs of shoes for us to give out at tournaments. So I'm looking forward to that. Yak Attack has been a staple with us. Stanley Jigs, Nichols Lures, Volta Lithium, our buddies,
Yep.
Tim and Silas, pumping out lithium batteries out of College Station over here. Onyx, Drake Performance Fishing, King Stink Stick, Vector Hooks, and good old Texas Slim Outdoors, man, are providing the DJ services right there. But other than that, man, but yeah, hey, if anyone else wants to get on board, hey, we can definitely work something out. I'm not opposed to adding more sponsors. I enjoy working with generally with smaller Texas companies. It's just a lot easier for us to help promote them where it benefits both parties. But like I said, I'm not opposed to working with anyone. So
That's awesome. Where can people get more information, like social media or webpage? Where can people find more about Texas Kayak Bass League?
so we got our Facebook group, as you're aware, is our staple. I mean, that's where all the action is. It seems like even for the other trails, if everyone comes to our pages talk. Uh, so yeah, if you want to keep up with everything, Facebook. Um, we got an Instagram. It's just Texas at Texas KBL. I think I don't post a whole lot in the off season. I try to post some. I try to post pictures from the events throughout the season. I kind of slack on that. If that's one thing I need to get is like somebody to do social media stuff. But we're on a tight budget here. There's no money being made. As you know, there's not a whole lot of money being made in the kayak promotion here. But we got a website as well. It's TXKBL.com. And SETXKBL.com is still active, but that's still got all of 2022 info up there. I'm working on getting that swapped over as soon as I get any changes or anything made in the rules or whatever. And once we finalize a few more sponsors, but other than that, I think we're set, man. I think if you're looking for info or need anything, man, definitely join our Facebook group. It's just Texas Kayak Bass League, TXKBL. It's not hard to find, and that's where all the action is, man. So.
Awesome. Well, Kris, I really appreciate you taking the time, man. I know it's kind of late, so again, super grateful. I apologize I'm not in my studio with a better quality audio and video, but we definitely want to see this sport grow, especially here in Texas. You and I both live in Texas, and as you know, we're proud of our bass fishing culture here in Texas. In my mind, this is the bass fishing mecca of the world. You have so many great lakes, and Texas Wildlife Department has such a great program with the Toyota share lunkers. They're always breeding and making sure we always have big bass, and it's amazing what the Texas Wildlife Park Department has done to kind of like keep our fisheries healthy and bringing in more local tourism to get into water here in Texas. So I appreciate what you've done, Kris, or what you've not done, what you're doing. And you can always count on Paddle and Fin and Bass Kayak and Beers to help promote what you're doing, because we know it's what's best for the sport. And again, my hat's off to you for all that you're doing, and Chris Delgado and Jeff Hashim and everybody else that's helped you along the way.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man, and likewise, you do a lot for our scene as well. You get a lot of our guys on here, our guys as far as Texas guys on here, and it really helps, man. So likewise, and not many places you can fish year round and catch personal best fish, in January, June, December, whenever you want. But yeah, man. Once we get the season rolling, I'm not opposed to coming back on, and we can talk.
Yeah.
So
definitely, and I plan to on each winner try to see, as soon as we can get them on the pod, and also highlight them. I know a lot of them are trying to grow their social media and all that, and even if they don't, everybody loves to talk about, brag about winning a tournament and catching big bass. So they're always welcome to come here.
Yeah. Oh, one last plug to help grow social media. Texas Slim Outdoors. Give him a follow. It's pure comedy. So
it is. So for those out there listening, if you made it this far, we really appreciate you. Again, go follow. If you live in Texas, go follow Texas Kayak Bass League. If you're looking to get into a tournament, it's great. It's a great mixture of some grassroots, but at the same time, there is some amazing talent, probably of all the regional trails out there. This is by far a stacked field. Don't let that intimidate you, because everybody in this group is all about growing the sport, and to reasonable extent they'll help you with your game and help you enjoy it. So if you're new to the sport and you want to try to get competitive fishing, and get to expand your circle of friends that love to do this sport, go check them out. And I mean, you're at the very least gonna come out with great connections and great experience, just with not just Kris Morales or Kris Delgado, but everybody that fishes this trail. So again, thank you, Kris, for coming along. For those out there again listening, check out the sponsor, DouglasOutdoors.com. If you're gonna be on the water, please wear your PFDs, and also if you're gonna have a couple of beers, just drink responsibly. Make sure you make it back to your loved ones. Have a great day, everyone. Peace out.